is Shyla. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a student in our UW Master of Social Work program. And I'm also a student information specialist with our Office of Admissions. And today I'm joined here by Nyla Hernandez,
Oli.
our Assistant Director of the Master of Social Work program. And Nyla has their MSW from our UW School of Social Work and their JD from UW, and is joined here today to talk more about our specializations.
Yes, let's get into it.
I'm excited. So let's start with the clinical specialization. This is one of our 3 specializations at the UW School of Social Work. So can you just start by telling me about this pathway and how would you describe the clinical specialization to prospective students?
Yes, I'm very happy to. I think what is really important to say is what our clinical specialization is not at first, right? Getting a clinical degree in social work is so much different than getting like a clinical degree in psychology. We are not an intensive therapy program. And I think a lot of students, prospective students in particular, and some of our current students, come in with the impression that we are just that, like an intensive therapy program. Our clinical specialization focuses more on breadth over depth. And so, what we try to expose our students to in the clinical socialization are a variety of modalities that they can choose beyond graduation and take another step into digging deeper into their clinical skills. So, really, this is just one step in their entire MSW journey. But to answer your question, what is the clinical socialization? I think it's important to state that our clinical social work program in particular focuses on a micro level of social work, meaning I and the folks who are within the clinical social work program are wanting to work with individuals, small groups, families, etc. And so that tends to be where they get the idea of like, oh, it's a therapy setting. I think the one thing that really distinguishes us as social workers, and this is where I'm biased, but makes us better is us as clinical social workers are considering the whole picture. And when I mean the whole picture, it's not somebody's entire story, it's their entire family's story, it's their entire culture's story. Like, what is going on? What are the systems that are shaping dynamics? And how do we navigate this person in front of us through the systems that they're forced to operating with? So what would be different is if you're going to a clinical psych program, for example, you might be working with a therapist who's really focused on diagnoses, are really versed in a particular modality. But a clinical social worker, you might have a client come to you one session saying like, I really need help with housing. And you're looking and spending your time together working on finding housing resources, right? So we're responsive to a diverse need of our clients. And I think that's really what makes us stand out in a clinical social work setting.
I love that. And I love how you put clinical social work in kind of also in like a meso and macro context too, because I think that's something that makes social work unique to other degrees that are somewhat comparable. I'm curious too, then, how would you describe to prospective students who are interested in social work and interested in therapy still, how would you, because social work, would you advertise therapy as a potential track for social work graduates, for example? Is that something that a graduate still could do with an MSW?
Yeah, so that's great. And so, yes, I want to clarify from my first response. It's not that you can't become a therapist, it's that you are more than just a therapist, right? I don't want folks to come in with a limited idea. And so, a wide variety of our students who focus in clinical specializations will naturally seek out like their clinical licensure, so their LICSW. They'll end up in community behavioral health. They might also extend that into a private practice. But what a lot of our other social workers do, right, is like, how can I take my clinical skills and take them back to my community? How can I make community workshops? How can I bring these skills into like the advocacy that I'm doing? And so it extends beyond just this 1 hour experience of one-on-one therapy. And it's like, how do I remain relational with folks in all of the work that I'm doing? Some other job prospects outside of school could be like resource navigation, program management, really working on any program that is designed to help folks get their needs met. So you might be leading food banks, you might be working in community and right being a referral center. Your job is just for people to come to so you can get them to where they need to be, right? And so I think thinking about clinical in a broader sense is so much more helpful because it provides students with a greater variety of options.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right. So we've talked a little bit about who clinical social work might be for and the premise of it at UW School of Social Work. I'm curious what practicum sites or job opportunities would be for clinical social workers?
Yeah, so great question. I think one, thinking beyond the traditional scope of clinical social work. So when I say traditional, I think folks tend to think community behavioral health or private practice, both of which are really great, right? But I want our students to know like all of their opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities to do housing justice, to do advocacy, to do like survivors work, healing circles. Medical social work is a huge and growing field where we're needing more people to go. So I think when it comes to a clinical setting, and all of those settings that I just named are also places that you can accrue licensure hours. And so I don't want folks to feel limited to how they approach clinical social work because we're not therapists, right? But we are social workers. And I think that's really what makes us different. And licensure is available to all of our students. It's not something that's limited to just clinical students. I think one thing that's really great about our clinical social work program is we are aware that students want and need some familiarity with how to navigate like diagnoses and different types of modalities to be able to make diagnoses, etc. And so like one of the classes that we offer is on mental health disorders, and it really teaches students how to navigate like the DSM-5, so the diagnostics book, gives them practice in doing like biopsychosocial assessments. So there's different ways that our students will be exposed to like traditional components of therapy, but that's not something that is limiting. So by choosing clinical or by choosing CCIP or by choosing APP, you'll still have that option to go pursue licensure. And I have a lot of my colleagues who I graduated with who are living proof that it's possible to get your licensure. And so I would encourage students to not let this be a limiting decision for their future.
Awesome. Thank you. And just to wrap things up too, I'm curious if you have any final thoughts about clinical specialization. What makes it unique here? Why should students choose it? Who is it a best fit for? Maybe who is it not a best fit for and they could consider another specialization even?
Yeah, I think starting with the last question, like who is it not for? I think, and I say this not because they don't have a belonging here, but I say this because their expectations might be misaligned with what our program offers. And I think it's really important for students to know that we are not an intensive therapy program. And so it's really important for folks to know, like, if you are wanting to be in-depth, immediate therapist in this one specific modality after the program, we might not be the school that's best equipped to get you there, right? With that said, if you are a person who feels energized by working with individuals, small groups, families, particularly times of like high stress, transition, loss, grief, harm, and you want to be that healing presence for them, this is the space for you, right? You will learn skills to be able to navigate those dynamics and be the healing presence that folks are needing and are asking for you to be. It just might be in a different way than what you were expecting when you got here.
Wonderful. Thank you for clarifying that. And thank you so much, Nyla. I appreciated this conversation about clinical social work.
Thank you for having me. Bye, besties.
Bye.